The source of form. Just as space holds the entire universe, the void is the background, a source from which all things, stars, rivers, even human consciousness emerges. Alan Watts. The concept of speaking into the void, the blend of emotional intensity mixed with a familiar yet overwhelming sense of emptiness, the conveyance of thought without any expectation of a response. An interesting and complex problem faced by many, to include teams of scientists and, of course, this aspiring podcast host. I'm Danny, and you're listening to a monochromatic perspective.
We'd appreciate it if anyone hearing this broadcast would communicate with us, as we are very anxious to know how far the broadcast is reaching and how it is being received.
If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Tesla's contribution to wireless communications included the use of transformers to couple both the transmitter and receiver circuits, enabling selective tuning. The use of high-frequency alternators to generate continuous waves rather than spark gap pulses, and his demonstration of the use of radio signals to control mechanical devices at a distance paved the way for a lot of the things we use today. Tesla is closely associated with another device, a device that bears his name, the Tesla coil, generating high voltage, high frequency power for the use of transmission of that power over a distance through the air. It and the events surrounding it at Wardenclyffe Tower are a wonderful story and something I would love to take a deep dive into, but perhaps now isn't the right time for that. Tesla's approach was theoretical, more sophisticated and forward-looking. His patents describe a system that most closely resembles the modern radio as we know it. Marconi, his contributions were more practical in nature for the time. A reliable wireless telegraph system, incremental improvements of range through the use of antennas, and a maritime radio system that saved countless lives at sea. So who really invented the radio? The question of who invented the radio has no simple answer, because the invention itself was a cumulative process. Radio technology emerged from the combined works of scientist and engineer alike. Maxwell predicted electromagnetic waves mathematically in 1865. Hertz demonstrated electromagnetic waves experimentally in 1887. Marconi built the practical long-distance wireless telegram system in the late 1890s, with Tesla building his tuned radio system with its sophisticated transmitters and receivers in 1897. The first voice would be heard on the airwaves before 1906. Each contribution was essential. The legal question of who held the patents for the specific technology may differ from the broader question of who deserves the credit for the invention of the radio as a complete technology. Innovation versus commercialization, and what a prize fight it would be. Tesla versus Marconi. This reinforces patterns often seen in technological history that I'm sure will be a recurring theme of this podcast. The person who invents the technology often differs from the person who successfully commercializes it and receives the credit. Tesla, by all accounts, was a brilliant inventor and a profound technical thinker, but it was no secret that he struggled in matters of business, and often could not convert this into commercial successes. Unlike men such as Marconi or Edison, Marconi in his own right was a very capable engineer, an exceptional businessman who built an entirely new industry out of wireless communication. Both skills matter, but often commercial success determines which name ends up in the history books. These men, be it in different ways and among others, definitely contributed to the radio's development. And with this development comes a new question, the question of what information it will carry and which voices it will amplify. What you have just heard was no malfunction. It was not static between the stations or some obscure dial-up tone. It was a small clip of a powerful 3-minute binary broadcast. It was beamed towards a star cluster named M13 using the Arecibo Observatory. The transmission consisted of 1,679 binary digits arranged to form a pictorial graph containing the numbers 1 through 10, the atomic numbers for hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, a lovely stick figure drawing depicting a human of average height, the world's total population at the time, and it concludes with a diagram showing the solar system itself with Earth highlighted.
Space is open to us now, and our eagerness to share its meaning is not governed by the efforts of others.
Whether it was a good idea to openly broadcast this information into space was certainly open for debate at the time. And despite the opinions of those who opposed the project, and regardless of how you feel about it right now, this message was sent the 16th of November, 1974. It would also not be the only of these messages sent. Over the years, we have intentionally sent a handful of these messages, to include the cosmic calls of 1999 and 2003, two crowdsourced interstellar broadcasts sent via the RT-70 radial telescope in Ukraine, targeting several nearby stars. In 2008, NASA would use the famous Beatles song Across the Universe to create a broadcast to send to the star Polaris using its deep space network. A ton of these broadcasts have been unintentionally made over the decades to include television, military radar, and commercial broadcasts. They have kind of naturally leaked, creating an ever-expanding bubble of Earth's culture. Other than the fact that this may interfere with some scientific equipment, it's viewed as mostly harmless. However, the adult animated series Futurama has a different take on this in an episode entitled When Aliens Attack. After the interruption of the final broadcast of his favorite Earth television program, a 20th century legal sitcom called Single Female Lawyer, a clear spoof of the Fox sitcom Ally McBeal, it follows the main character, Jenny McNeil. Lure, in response to the interruption of this broadcast, launched a full-scale invasion of Earth, and in a public address to the people, threatens to lay waste to whole cities with his anti-monument lasers should the people not provide him McNeil. And I think we find this incredibly relatable. We as people have a certain obsession with media. I'm not sure if our attempts to seek connection beyond ourselves will bear any fruit, or if whatever we find out there will become a fierce enemy or a great ally. Friedrich Nietzsche says that if you gaze long into the abyss also gazes unto you. Whether that's a reassuring sentiment or a terrifying thought depends highly on the perspective of the viewer. I'm Danny, and I would like to thank you for listening to this installment of the Monochromatic Perspectives, and invite you to subscribe and join us for future episodes as we break down the hidden tales in everyday objects.